Failure to identify. A person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence, address, or date of birth to a police officer who has lawfully arrested the person.
It's an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence address, or date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested the person. That's Section 38.02 of the Texas Penal Code, word for word, officially filed, publicly available, and, as you're about to hear, apparently never read by 3 trained law enforcement officers standing in a Walmart parking lot in Crossroads, Texas. Picture a courtroom scale, except on one side sits a 32-page state statute, plain English, available to anyone with a phone. And on the other side sits a badge, a flashlight, and absolute confidence. That scale should tip toward the law. In this case, it tipped toward the badge. Until it didn't. Before we go deeper into what the body cam and the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Police Misconduct Case, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. On June 28, 2023, at 9:14 p.m., Officer Haley Hulbert of the Crossroads Police Department responded to a call for
body-worn camera.
Is this your car?
Yeah.
Okay. I was this close to breaking the window out.
It's not that hot.
It's 95 degrees. It means it's over 100 inside the vehicle.
I've been in there.
Windows have to be cracked. There's got to be something.
I was trying to keep the air conditioning in for him because I literally...
Okay, go to open that door and crack the windows open for the dog, and then use your driver's license, please. $428. I'm out with the vehicle owner. Hey. Okay. Hey.
So you can feel it's not...
It's 95 degrees.
A dog left inside a vehicle outside a Walmart. Standard welfare check. Nothing unusual. By 9:24 p.m., she located the car. Windows up, temperature outside roughly 90 degrees. The kind of call that, on its face, deserves a look. Nobody disputes that. 6 minutes later, a man named Mr. Beard walked out of the store, dog leash in hand, and approached the vehicle. What followed over the next 20-plus minutes, captured entirely on Officer Hulbert's body-worn camera, is a masterclass in how a routine welfare check can curdle into a constitutional violation. Not because the officer was cruel, but because she was certain. And certainty, when it's wrong, is its own kind of danger. "Is this your car?" Hulbert asked. Beard said yes. She asked for his driver's license. He said he didn't have one on him. And right there, 30 seconds in, the entire trajectory of the night was set. Because what should have been a 5-minute conversation about a dog became a 20-minute standoff about identification. Beard told her, calmly, that he didn't have to provide a physical ID unless he was lawfully arrested. He was right. He just couldn't remember the exact statute number. Hulbert told him he was wrong. She was the one who was wrong.
I take him with me everywhere.
Okay, I just need to see the driver's license.
I don't have one with me.
Do I have any ID with you?
No.
Do you know your driver's license number?
What did I do wrong?
This is a criminal offense, okay?
What is criminal offense?
For animal neglect and abuse, yes.
No. 03, I think it is. You could ask for my identification. I don't have to get it unless I've been lawfully arrested. That's the only time
so that's not true.
Look it up. Look it up. That's all
Out here with. I'm not going to get distracted in a cell phone or a computer.
To read the law? Do you rather just arrest me?
I don't need to read the law.
Yeah, you do.
We do this day in and day out.
Improperly, apparently.
Sergeant Tyler explains that the department received a call for service, which granted them reasonable suspicion to detain and investigate Mr. Beard for a potential animal cruelty violation. And Mr. Beard contends that their suspicion has been dispelled because his dog is obviously not in distress. As mentioned before, even if the Crossroads officers had reasonable suspicion to investigate Mr. Beard, that does not mean that he was under any legal obligation to provide his name or
Here's
physical...
the irony explosion. Texas is one of a handful of states that does not require a person to hand over physical identification during an investigative detention, only a name, address, and date of birth, and only once that person has been lawfully arrested, not merely detained. Mr. Beard was never under arrest that night. He was detained, at most, under suspicion of a potential animal cruelty violation, a violation that requires actual evidence of distress, not just a closed window in a phone call. Officer Holbert never documented distress. She never located him inside the store to ask how long he'd been gone. She simply waited by the car, and when he appeared, she skipped the investigation and went straight to the demand. That's not law enforcement. That's a script with the wrong ending already written. A supervisor arrived, Sergeant Tyler. You'd expect rank to bring clarity. Instead, it brought reinforcement of the same error. Tyler told Beard the same thing Holbert had. You are lawfully required to identify yourself. Beard, still calm, still polite, asked them repeatedly to simply look up the statute on the phone sitting in the patrol car. Look it up. Look it up. That's all I'm asking. 3 trained officers, 1 smartphone, 32 words of statutory text, and not
What's the name when I'm lawfully detained?
The crime of animal cruelty has possibly, is it currently, or had been committed. Okay?
Yeah. Well, investigate.
Hang on.
Investigate. Prove it.
That's the part
You
of
said
it.
you just said you don't know how long I've been in the store. If you knew how long I've been in the store,
So the part of the investigation is then we contact Walmart and say, hey,
okay, investigate.
here's what we need to do.
That's fine. You got my VIN number.
We need to figure out who this person is and how long you've been in the store. How long the animal.
I've explained this thoroughly enough and physically read the statute to you. You guys are losing your qualified immunity, okay? Seriously. Are you a sergeant?
Yes, sir.
And you don't know this?
Absolutely. I guess if you're
This is
saying I don't know.
bewildering. I mean, this is just, I am
I'm sorry.
beside
you're
myself.
But if you just read it with,
Call your lieutenant,
we don't have a lieutenant.
captain.
No, sir.
How are you gonna, what you're
I
trying to do?
need the
is-
identification. And right now, the dog is having to sit in the car even further.
Yeah,
Because
you really don't
will
care about
not-
the animal, do you?
You will not identify
You really
yourself.
don't care about the animal, do
I am
you?
here to do my job.
You're here to get my ID. That's all you want.
I need your identification to complete
It's like
this process.
crack to you guys.
It's required.
No, it isn't. Would you freaking read 3802? Would you read it? It's right there.
This is the moment worth sitting with, because it's the heart of the entire case. Not the dog, not the heat. The refusal from the people with the badges to verify their own authority before using it. Ask yourself this. What happens in America when the people enforcing the law are the only ones in the conversation who haven't read it? Beard eventually pulled up the statute himself and read it aloud, twice. A person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence address, or date of birth to a peace officer who has lawfully arrested the person. He emphasized lawfully arrested. He was not under arrest. Holbert's response? I don't need to read the law. Sergeant Tyler's response? Continue insisting Beard was obligated to comply. This is the moral refrain of tonight's case, and it's worth saying clearly because it will come up 2 more times before we're done. Confidence
That's not
is
either.
not
Well,
a
I mean,
safe
technically, this detainment has lasted a little longer than it's supposed to, but
That's
I'm not.
That's
I'm not
due
worried
to
about
you.
That's
So
you are free to go.
go home, take care of your
it.
dog.
Please look up the law tonight.
Mr. Beard hired an attorney and issued a demand letter to the mayor of Crossroads alleging violations of his constitutional rights and requesting $75,000 in compensation. The city of Crossroads apparently rejected this offer because on March 5th, 2025, Mr. Beard filed a federal lawsuit against the city and both Officer Holbert and Sergeant Tyler. On May 27th, 2025, Mr. Beard voluntarily dismissed his claims against the officers, seeking only to pursue claims against the city. And on July 2nd, 2025, Mr. Beard also dismissed his claims against the city after reaching an undisclosed resolution. Overall, the Crossroads officers get an F for demonstrating a fundamental misunderstanding.
Let's go to the legal record, because this isn't a matter of opinion. Texas courts have already weighed in on facts almost identical to these. In the 1999 case, Garcia versus State, the Texas 14th Court of Appeals held that an anonymous tip alone, without corroboration of the actual criminal allegation, does not establish the reasonable suspicion required for an investigative detention. The U.S. Supreme Court reinforced the same principle a decade earlier in Alabama versus White. The reliability of a tip determines how much independent corroboration police need before they can lawfully detain someone. In this case, the underlying allegation was a violation of Section 42.092 of the Texas Penal Code, cruelty to a non-livestock animal, defined specifically as causing or permitting unjustified or unwarranted pain or suffering. Officer Holbert observed a dog in a parked car. She did not observe distress, lethargy, or any of the indicators the statute actually requires. She had a phone call. She did not have corroboration. Under the framework set by Garcia and White, that's not enough to detain. Let alone
Mr.
to
Beard
demand
filed a
ID.
federal lawsuit against the city and both Officer Holbert and Sergeant Tyler. On May 27, 2025, Mr. Beard voluntarily dismissed his claims against the officers, seeking only to pursue claims against the city. And on July 2, 2025, Mr. Beard also dismissed his claims against the city after reaching an undisclosed resolution. Overall, the Crossroads officers get an F for demonstrating a fundamental misunderstanding of both Texas law and basic constitutional principles, failing to conduct a legitimate investigation before baselessly threatening to arrest Mr. Beard, and for displaying a hostile and confrontational attitude throughout the encounter. There is no denying that a call about a dog potentially trapped inside of a hot vehicle warrants an officer's investigation, and the officers were well within their authority to approach Mr. Beard's vehicle and initiate that investigation. However, instead of taking simple investigative steps that would actually matter to an animal cruelty assessment, Officer Holbert...
And that's exactly what happened next. When Beard continued to decline to hand over identification, which, again, the law did not require, the officers shifted tactics. They told him that if he kept refusing, they'd have to impound his dog. Watch the language here, because it matters. Not we're concerned about the dog's welfare. It was, another consequence is we have to impound your dog. A consequence for exercising a right. Beard called it what it was. That would be retaliation. He was right again. Confidence is not the same as authority. That's the second time. Because by minute 18 of this encounter, Sergeant Tyler is still insisting the detention is lawful. Beard is still calmly insisting it isn't. And the actual statute, sitting open on a phone screen the entire time, remains unread by the only two people with the power to end the encounter immediately by simply looking at it. Here's the parallel narrative worth pulling out, because it reframes the entire night. This wasn't really a story about a dog in a hot car. The dog was fine. The windows were eventually cracked. The temperature inside was, by Beard's account, colder than outside. The real story is about institutional certainty colliding with an informed citizen, and what happens when the badge assumes the citizen must be wrong simply because he's the one
From the very beginning of the interaction, Mr. Beard handled the encounter in a way that immediately undercut any potential claim that he posed a safety risk to the officers or was attempting to obstruct their investigation. He did not raise his voice, use profanity, or engage in personal attacks, even as the officers escalated the interaction with repeated threats of arrest and animal impoundment. Instead, Mr. Beard stayed focused on the specific issue in dispute and continued to respond in a controlled and measured manner, which is the single most effective way for a citizen to preserve their innocence and legal liability on camera without giving officers a pretext to reframe the encounter as disorderly or resistant. Mr. Beard also demonstrated a strong understanding of the relevant Texas law and the constitutional principles surrounding this encounter, and correctly explained the distinction the statute draws between refusing to provide information and providing false identifying information. The fact that he was willing to cite and explain the governing statute in real time, and to do so without becoming confrontational, placed the officers in the difficult position of either reevaluating their assumptions or continuing to insist on a legal obligation that did not exist. That said, Mr. Beard's strongest decision was not the debate itself, but the discipline and diligence he demonstrated after the encounter ended. He followed up by filing
Beard never raised his voice. He never used profanity. He cited a real statute correctly, in real time, under pressure, while 3 officers told him he was wrong about the very text he was holding up to read. That's not a man trying to get away with something. That's a man trying to get the conversation back to the actual law. Eventually, after roughly 21 minutes, the officers released him without charge. No arrest, no citation, free to go. Which raises an obvious question. If the detention was lawful and the demand for ID was lawful, why did it end with nothing? Because somewhere in that parking lot, even without admitting it out loud, the Crossroads Police Department knew they didn't have a case. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Mr. Beard filed a formal complaint. He followed up directly with Crossroads Police Chief Sean Short. And here's where the hard evidence becomes undeniable, because Chief Short's own written response, an official letter responding to the complaint, admits in writing that the officers were wrong about their interpretation of Section 38.02. Read that again. The Chief of Police, in an official document, confirmed that it went further, framing part of the prolonged detention as a result of Beard's lack of cooperation. In other words, blaming the citizen for not making it easier for officers to violate his rights correctly. The department's own remedy, according to that letter, was that staff would be refamiliarized with the statute. Not retrained, not disciplined. Refamiliarized, as if the problem was a forgotten password, not a fundamental misunderstanding of constitutional law applied against an actual person, on camera, for 21 minutes. Confidence is not the same as authority. Third time. Because even in the apology, the department couldn't fully let go of the idea that Beard was somehow the difficult one. Mr. Beard didn't stop at a complaint. He hired an attorney, sent a demand letter to the mayor of Crossroads alleging violations of his constitutional rights, and asked for $75,000 in compensation. The city declined. On March 5th, 2025, Beard filed a federal lawsuit against the city, Officer Holbert, and Sergeant Tyler directly. 2 months later, he voluntarily dismissed the claims against the individual officers, choosing to pursue the city alone, a common and strategic legal move when the goal is institutional accountability rather than personal financial ruin for 2 officers following bad training. On July 2nd, 2025, Beard dismissed the remaining claims against the city after reaching an undisclosed resolution. No public dollar figure, no public admission beyond what Chief Short had already put in writing. Just a quiet ending to a case that started with a man holding up a phone, asking 3 armed officers to read 32 words. So what's the final accounting here? The Crossroads officers get a failing grade, not for responding to the original call, which was justified, but for everything that came after. They never corroborated the underlying allegation before escalating to a detention. They demanded an ID the law didn't require. They threatened to impound an animal as a consequence for a citizen exercising a legal right. And when handed the actual statute, read aloud, twice by the person they were detaining, they still refused to look at it. Mr. Beard, by contrast, gets full credit. He stayed calm. He stayed accurate. He never escalated. And critically, he didn't stop at being right in the moment. He turned that correctness into a documented complaint, then a demand letter, then federal litigation, building a paper trail that forced a police chief to put an admission of error in writing. That's the part of this story that should matter to you more than the body cam footage itself. The law only protects people who know it and who are willing to follow through. How many of those encounters end the way this one did, with the citizen calm enough, informed enough, and patient enough to walk away and build a case? And how many end differently, simply because the person being detained didn't have the statute memorized, didn't stay calm, or didn't know that look it up was a request they were legally entitled to make? If you want to verify any of this yourself, the relevant text is public record. Texas Penal Code Section 38.02, the failure to identify statute, and Section 42.092, the cruelty to non-livestock animal statute, both searchable on the Texas Legislature's official website. Chief Sean Short's response letter to Mr. Beard's complaint is also part of the public record, tied to this case. Read the statute yourself, time how long it takes. We'd guess under 2 minutes. And then ask yourself the question we're leaving you with tonight. If a private citizen can correctly recite a law that 3 trained officers got wrong, what exactly is being taught at the academy, and who's responsible for fixing it? Drop your answer in the comments. If this case frustrated you the way it should, hit like, Share it with someone who needs to hear their rights explained in plain English. Subscribe to Police Misconduct Case and turn on notifications, because we cover the cases the mainstream outlets skip, straight from the public record, every single time.